Afternoon, bonjour tout le monde. I was pleased to introduce this afternoon Bill C-12, the Strengthening Canada's Immigration System and Borders Act. It has many elements of Bill C-2. It is a bill that I expect to have broader support within this House to be able to get it passed in an expedited manner. So look forward to your questions.
Can you outline what the changes are, the differences between the two?
Sure. The major feature, so C2 has lawful access. It has the element of postal searches of postal of mail that's coming through the Canada Post system, as well as the $10,000 limit as part of the money laundering elements of Bill C2.
Why didn't you make these changes initially?
Look, this bill was introduced, as you're aware, within days of forming government. Throughout the summer, we had the opportunity to meet and talk to many Canadians, many organizations, many groups that work in different elements of where this bill will impact. We've also had an opportunity to speak with other parliamentarians, and we felt that essentially putting forward a second bill that carves out the more contentious elements of Bill C-2 will enable us to get swifter passage of the bill.
Are you saying that you basically rushed the bill to appease Donald Trump? Is that what you're saying?
Did I say that?
Well, you said that you had quickly doing this bill after the government was formed. Now you've done all these consultations. Why didn't you do all of that in the first place instead of now reintroducing a bill only after people complained about it? So why didn't you do it initially? Was it rushed?
Every bill has its life cycle, and this particular bill in C2, when we introduced it, it did come from informed decisions from a range of different departments. There's some 8 or 9 different departments that informed the bill. Having spoken to many stakeholders, the decision was made to bring forward a new bill.
Why not just amend C2 and then come back, do your homework, and come back to the drawing board with a new bill with the more contentious parts?
Look, the amendment process, as you know, can be quite cumbersome, and there are strict guidelines on what could be amended and what couldn't. We felt that, first off, having C-12, incorporating many of the most important elements that were part of C2 as a separate standalone bill was important. C2 will still continue with the other elements, including lawful access, which I'm quite committed to. We'll go through in a separate track. So the amending was not necessarily the option. It's about ensuring that we have a broader consensus on the elements in C12 that's there, and to work towards C2 as well.
Are you comfortable with parts 14 and 15, the lawful access, as they stand now? Even people who are national security hawks say, whoa, 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 whoa. Are you comfortable with the current form of this bill, C2?
The lawful access regime, Canada is the only Five Eyes country that does not have a regime. We have 2 Supreme Court decisions that informed the manner in which the lawful access regime should work. There are certainly potential for amendments to strengthen it. I've read a number of different pieces on it. Some of them are quite compelling. Some of them are misinformed. And I think what we need to get to is a general consensus on what lawful access looks like. The world that we're working in today with the massive use of technology, with AI, with a range of new technology that has essentially made police techniques antiquated, and the inability of police to do proper investigation, particularly in the context of childhood sexual exploitation, child porn, and so on. I do think it requires governments to act. Whether it is in the current form or whether in a form that we can build broader consensus, it is up to the Parliament and to the process. But on a personal level, I'm committed to lawful access as a principle that should be in Canadian law.
Are you worried about parts of the bill now lacking teeth when it comes to fighting organized crime, money laundering, fentanyl? Those are all things that the White House has raised, and you're taking out the majority of the parts of the bill that specifically act on these issues.
There's only 3 parts that are being changed. Lawful access is one. I'd said money laundering, very small element of money laundering, not the entire piece. It's the $10,000 limit, and the other piece is postal. So those are elements. That doesn't contain the full scope of the bill. It is quite a wide bill, as you're aware, and I believe that it's responding to the challenges we have at the border. It's responding to the needs of law enforcement to be able to have additional tools to do their work. And as I said, C-2 will still continue on a parallel track.
Are your American counterparts aware that you're taking out these parts of the bill? What was their reaction if you've informed them?
Look, we've had a number of conversations with the Americans over the last several months, and those conversations will continue.
Was it you have from opposition parties that with those withdrawals they will support that bill, and from which party you have some guarantees?
Well, look, I don't think I should be speculating on that right now. What I believe is we have put forward a very important bill that addresses issues around immigration as well as border that is needed today in Canada in response to a range of issues, including some opinions from south of the border. And I believe it is one that will have broader support. I would encourage you to speak to other parties to determine where they would stand. But I am comfortable in saying that this should get broader support.
What's your timeline for passing C-12?
Look, the parliamentary calendar is quite full, as you're aware. A number of very important bills have already gone to the committee study, so this does open up some discussion. We hope to have debate at some point in the next several weeks, and hopefully it will get to committee as soon as possible.
Can I just ask, Minister, are you tearing up the bill of your own volition, or were you under pressure from PMO to do something so that the bill can progress to committee stage?
This happened as a result of conversations I've had with a number of people. This is not coming from PMO or anyone else. This is coming from informed by the discussions we've been having with a range of stakeholders as well as parliamentarians.
So was this episode of coming back with a new revised bill a wake-up call or a hard lesson learned that you are still in a minority government, and what can you tell us about it?
Look, I've been an MP for 10 years, and I have been responsible for a number of critical bills that have gone through the House, some that didn't make it through the House, but for example, Bill C-15, which is the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples Act, a very contentious initially and difficult bill, but we were able to listen to opposition. We were listening to, in that case, a lot of Indigenous people and ensure that we get the right balance. And I think the notion that once a bill is tabled, it needs to pass as is, I reject that notion, and I believe that there needs to be an element of flexibility on the part of ministers, especially as they bring forward a bill. From the outset, I've been very clear, Minister Fraser has been clear, and other colleagues have been clear, that we're open and willing to work with stakeholders as well as all parties on strengthening the bill and making sure that it finds the right balance between civil liberties and ability of law enforcement to more effectively do their job.
Help me understand this. So C2 will continue on a separate track with a lot of the measures that are actually being introduced in C12. Can you help us understand
Sure.
this? It's quite confusing.
Yeah, well, so it's basically now it'll be two bills. So C12 will go through the House process. I anticipate that to go before C2. And once C2, if it's the will of the House to pass C12, then the elements that are repetitive in C2 will be deleted. Because it will be repetitive, and I think the clerk actually does that pro forma as part of the process of going through line by line at committee. So when there's a redundancy, it'll be deleted. So it'll be the elements that are not repeated that will be part of C2. However, as it goes through the committee process, there could be amendments to the three elements that I talked about that will remain in C2.
So you're backing down on those. You still want those things to pass, correct?
I'm saying that those are important elements, right? I mean, there's no question they're important, including lawful access. You talk to any law enforcement agency, and what I would really invite many of you to do is to connect with the local law enforcement agency in your area and walk through the challenges they have in using modern technology. And the example I use is many of you may know Bowers. It's a directory where if you have somebody's phone number, you can go to that directory and get the person's address. And C-12 nowhere goes, doesn't go anywhere close to it, but that technology has really challenged the ability of, for example, law enforcement to call up a particular telecom company and say, is this number attached to your company? And if they say yes, and right now there's no compulsion to say yes, C-12 requires that. Any information beyond that requires a warrant. So I think this is where my invitation to all of you is really look at the challenges that law enforcement is facing today as images. Sometimes, one image of a young person being exploited could blow up within hours, and it could be across the world. And when I was at the Five Eyes in England, that's what I heard. That's what I heard from survivors. That's what I heard from individuals who've been working in this space. So I'm quite sympathetic to the challenges that's faced. We need to be absolutely clear. There are civil liberties elements that we need to ensure that their safeguards are there. But there is certainly a need for consensus for us to have an element of lawful access that will both protect individual victims, but also protect the civil liberties of Canadians.
We'll take one last question, please.
I have a procedural question, which is, which bill is going to go to committee first? Because obviously Bill C-2 is further advanced, it's the second reading. You're just introducing this. How can you ensure that this new and improved bill actually takes precedence?
Parliament is the master of its own domain, as they say. So having said that, I do anticipate the Bill C-12 will have greater traction and likely go through the committee phase early. This is me speculating, but of course, there's no guarantee.
Can you just quickly clarify why you're keeping the immigration changes? Those have also been widely criticized. So could you explain why you're pushing ahead with those?
Sure. There are many who have called for changes to the Immigration Refugee Protection Act. There are complicated changes, but ones that I think required, just given many of the challenges we've been having at the border. I think Minister of Immigration will be more than glad to elaborate at some point, but this is an essential element of the bill that we are carrying forward.
Minister, if I could just jump one more. You mentioned the IP. Allow me to push back a bit. Part 14 literally allows the government or the authorities to go to any service provider, any part of the country, and ask them. That can be a gynecologist, could be a child psychiatrist, could be anywhere. It's not Bell, Rogers, and TELUS. The concerns that civil liberties people have is that it is anyone with no warrant, with just a reasonable grounds to suspect that a crime may be committed, to then get a trove of data about if a person is a client or not. So the example you gave, sure, is a very simple one, but there's much more complex systems. So again, you said that you heard compelling criticism of this bill. How do you explain how far this goes without any judicial supervision, just judicial review?
So let me just clarify, right? On the need to get what's called subscriber information, the singular information that could be obtained by subscriber information is this individual a client of, say, a telco or not? That is the only question that can be asked. Beyond it, when you want to get subscriber information, the police need to provide a warrant. It's based on a reasonable grounds to suspect, which is where I think you're going with this, which is a demand. Well, no, it's not services. But so the first element is this individual, are you providing service to this individual, right? So telco, internet service provider, and so on. So if that is broader than I think we want it to be, I think we will be more than willing to look at how we constrain that. That's the first element. The second element is, based on that, we can go to a telco and say, here's a warrant. Would you provide subscriber information about this individual? And that's very basic information, nothing to do with browsing history, nothing to do with anything other than the name of the individual, contact information, and that's it. That's based on a reasonable grounds to suspect standard. Anything beyond that will require, again, another warrant, which will be in a higher standard of reasonable grounds to believe, which is the normal standard for most warrants. So, look, if there's elements of it that we need to tighten, we will be more than willing to do that. But for the purpose of today, C-12 is the focus, where lawful access is not incorporated in that bill. Thank you.
Thank you all.